Oh, hi there. So it's time to watch Joint Failures, is it? Well, I'm glad you stopped by because we've got a lot of great things to talk about this episode. We're going to give you some news that's, well, only applicable if you're a geek and you like entertainment. Maybe a little Terminator franchise sale news. Maybe Joss Whedon wants to buy it. We'll talk about that. Of course, we've got to cover some crazy things those kids over at Apple are doing. They're going to block your netbook. Did you know about that? What are those guys up to? We'll cover it. Then, of course, we've got to stir the pot. We've got to talk about net neutrality. Old Johnny McCain, he's up to something crazy. His old antics, you never know what he's going to do. We'll cover that. And then, ladies and gentlemen, 12 months in office, President Obama. First 12 months a flop? Or did he do a good job? We get you all riled up talking about it. That's all in this episode of Joint Failures.
It's my show! Joint Failures.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Joint Failures. My name is Chris, and that's John.
I'm John.
That's John.
You're right.
I got it right this time. All right, so coming up in this episode, we've got things that you want to hear about or listen, see about, watch about.
Right.
First of all, we got some geektainment. That's my cute way of saying entertainment that geeks are interested in.
We could just say entertainment for people who like geeky stuff.
that
way it would be a cute little catchphrase.
Is that as cute, though?
No. It wouldn't sell puppies.
And I got some tech stories that I think will be interesting to talk about. And then we've got to stir the pot a little bit. We've got a politics section near the end. And because we're equal bashers, we have one that's about something the Republicans are doing and one that's something about the Democrats are doing. Now, I know some of you are outside the United States, but...
Generally, you probably still have a feeling on it one way or another, though.
At least the Republican one affects... Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get right into it. Let's get into the entertainment section that is interesting to geeks. John?
Yes.
I want to tell you about a little story.
Tell me.
There's this franchise that was once strong and thriving and very good.
Well, what was it?
The Terminator franchise, John.
Oh.
I don't know if you've seen Terminator 1, 2,
Yes.
3. Oh, okay.
Yes.
I did know that, actually.
Okay.
So the Terminator franchise is up for sale, and it's being sold off for not actually an obscene,
How much
less
is it?
money than you'd think. I believe. Now, this is just a number that I'm getting off of Slashdot here, so I'm not positive. But
$500.
No,
Arnold Schwarzenegger will come over and massage you.
it's probably under the $200 million mark.
Okay.
The same company recently sold the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise for
No.
$60 million. Yeah,
That should have hit my email address when
right.
I can pull something together.
I will pay $500 for the Terminator franchise. Now, because Joss Whedon, we all know and love Joss Whedon, creator of Buffy and Angel and Firefly and now Dollhouse, he has written an open letter suggesting they sell the Terminator franchise to him. Now, he is tongue-in-cheek about the whole thing, and he makes a few jokes about how Summer Glau would be...
As he is wont to do.
I think the term was... They don't call it summer blockbusters for nothing. Let me work in Summer Glau here.
Right,
Which,
right.
Got to kind of agree with him
He
there.
likes her.
I do too. But very funny letter. I'll link to it in the show notes. He's very, very funny guy. And the whole concept of... And I almost wonder, does it make you feel old? Okay, so you've got these franchises that we grew up on.
Yeah.
Terminator, for sure. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, of course.
Right.
Do you feel like...
Do I feel old?
Yeah, like is this a sign
Well,
of time
I really
passing
do with the
us by?
Terminator or with the
Turtles?
because they left and they came back and they're all like just totally different now, way different style and all kinds of stuff. It's just fine. It's just it makes me feel old because I remember when they were new and everybody was making fun of them then.
Yep.
Terminator, it makes me feel old. My first memory of the Terminator was coming upstairs and my parents were watching it with their friends, and it was at the end of the movie where like the hand's still going.
Yes.
And I just laughed. I thought it was hilarious because it just seemed so cheesy. And later, when I got older, I loved it.
Yeah.
Still kind of cheesy.
So
but
I don't remember. I should look it up really quick. I'll look it up while I talk about this. So my first experience with the Terminator franchise wasn't Terminator 1.
Terminator 2?
You're talking about Terminator 1 there.
I was talking about Terminator 1.
Yeah.
Terminator 2, I actually saw in Chicago on vacation. And that's how I roll on my vacations. I go to major U.S. cities and watch movies.
So let's see. If Terminator... can came out in Terminator 2 came out in 1991.
Right.
And so I was 9 years old when Terminator 2 came out.
Okay.
So that dates me right there. I got sick.
What?
I don't know if I like ate too much candy or if the whole concept of
morphing.
No, that was bad. Every time you change shape, all over the place, just
that black or white video.
No, you know what it was the whole concept of the Judgment Day, like when we did the flash forwards, like that freaked me out as a 9-year-old kid
Really?
so bad that I think I couldn't sleep that night. I was like throwing up and stuff.
Oh, well.
Or I just ate too much candy. I don't remember.
When was the original Judgment Day? Like 96 or something? I think we're safe.
Yeah, I think we passed. Well, only because of the events that happened.
Right.
As we learned, which then I think was undone. But that was my first experience. That was pretty intense. I actually kind of avoided it for a couple of years until I was like in my 13 or 14. Yeah, well, it was made a big impression. And then I went back and watched Terminator 1 when I still found it cheesy.
Yeah, it is. It's cheesy, but still enjoyable,
Rewatched Terminator 2, found it just as watchable, not as freaky, but found it very enjoyable. And then moved on, of course, when the Terminator 3 and 4 came out, which I did not enjoy as much.
Right. Well, they're not very good, are they?
But it's just weird that, like,
Although personally, I think 3 is better than 4. Like, a lot of people dog on 3. I think 3 is better than 4. 3 has a lot of problems. But personally, I enjoy it more. I think it fits in with the story.
I might agree with you. I think I might agree with you because I thought the whole heart thing was just ridiculous in number 4. He has a strong heart. And then they take it. I don't want to ruin it for people that haven't seen it yet. But
cast blasted or something.
Yeah, you're right. Terminator 3, I think I did like better. Plus, it kind of tied it all together.
It had a great chase scene too with a
with him
truck or
blasting,
train truck.
Blasting through all the buildings as he hung on. And then, that was cool.
Good.
Plus, they had inflatable boobs.
Right.
But it's funny because it does make me feel a little bit old because it's something I kind of grew up with. Plus, it's also interesting to look at it from the perspective of something that was very successful, and Terminator 2 was just a huge hit.
Oh yeah.
And then Hollywood screwed it up.
Right. Now, I would still argue though that $200 million. I think you can get your money's worth out of that.
That's a guesstimate.
That's guesstimate. Well, okay, so the TV franchise is kind of gone right now. But I bet there's still money in comics. I bet if they do it right, if they get the right writers behind it, and they don't ruin it with focus groups, and
right,
and
they let people
they can make another good film. I mean, the concept is great. Yeah, it's enjoyable. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it.
The concept's really good. Really, I mean, there's a lot to it that's got some real meat. It's just that so far since Terminator 2, their execution has sort of fallen down lower than it really should have, and I don't know if it is because of the focus group thing. Maybe that's what it's. But to me, it just seems like they didn't have the balls, or the time, or the not money.
Yeah, they don't. They half-assed it. Is what happened.
Yeah. And
I think they half-assed it in 3, but I think less so than 4. And I don't know.
I did think it was kind of stupid that he has like a nuclear bomb basically in his chest.
Yeah.
That was kind of stupid. But all right.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Moving on to other idiotic things in Hollywood.
All right.
Stargate Universe, we've talked about it a little bit. Now, this is kind of an interesting one.
Chris watches it after beer's tasty.
Yes. Not the last one. The last one, I was totally sober.
And did you enjoy it?
It was okay.
Yeah, that's how you tend to feel on your sober viewing.
Yeah, so there's been a little bit of controversy around Stargate Universe. One of the female actors from the show, and there's only a couple main female characters. There's, so I'm looking at the cast picture right now. There's 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth they're not showing in this cast picture. So there's 3 or 4, but you only see like 2 an episode.
Okay.
And the lieutenant from Stargate Universe basically wrote a blog post saying that she really wishes the Stargate Universe writers knew what to do with women beyond just objectifying them as sex objects and planning to have the cameras focus on their boobs. So that fueled and already kind of people watching the show kind of noticed that the women really aren't doing much. It's all about the dudes who are saving the day. And I actually hadn't noticed that, although I did notice like there was
going back and you kind of see that now though.
There was a gal. She was the senator's daughter. Then, like, she goes through some tragedy. And then, like, 1 or 2 episodes later, shower scene, sex scene, like
Right.
just hit you with it.
So she probably has a point.
I think she's good looking though, so I wasn't complaining. But so one of the writers of Stargate Universe has commented. Basically, this lieutenant chick, the actress, stirred a pot by making a blog post about it.
Right.
Then a bunch of people jumped on board. A bunch of the viewers jumped on board and started saying, "Yeah, this is awful. This is horrible." So one of the writers,
she's not on the show anymore, right?
oh, I think she might be.
Oh, really? So she did this while still on the show?
Yeah. That's another interesting element to it.
Okay.
So the actress's name is Julia Benson, and then the writer Joseph Malazzi. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce his name.
Yeah, Joseph Malazzi.
Yeah, he basically wrote a blog post saying everyone that's saying that we're being sexist is a bunch of idiots. I'm not saying their comments are idiotic. I'm saying the actual people writing those comments are idiots, and we're not sexist. This, that, and the other thing, which is just intensified the debate.
Right.
And I don't know. I realize. Okay, first of all, you've got to figure. They looked at their recipe and they said, well, we know that these things from these shows that we've done, like Battlestar Galactica, Warehouse 13, a few other things that they're doing right now, these are the elements that are working really well worked really well in those shows. They tried to integrate them into Stargate Universe. The sex, amping up the sex was one of those things. And I think, you figure Sifi.
See, I think it's an interesting debate.
90% male audience.
As a male, it's that kind of stuff. If I'm not thinking about how it objectifies them, it doesn't really bother me. I kind of enjoy it, I admit. But at the same time, they're kind of locking themselves into the audience, because it is kind of, women do notice that kind of thing. And even if it's not...
Who's to say they don't like it, though?
Right. Who's to say they don't like it?
Women like the sexy.
But if they don't if there isn't really a character that they can relate to, I think it's, to a certain degree, is probably locking them into a male audience, which might actually hurt them in the long run.
Maybe. You might be right. So principal photography has ended for Stargate Universe. They're done. There's no official word yet if it's going to be picked up, though I think it's one of their better rated shows right now for the Sci-Fi network, so I suspect it's probably going to get picked up. It doesn't really bother me, I guess, because I'm a dude, but at the same time, what does bother me, and so maybe I can kind of see where the female audience is coming from, is a lot of times in commercials, especially TV and radio, it's always the white, dumb male who's being schooled by his wife or
it happens all the time.
Coworkers, and it's like that.
Those are generally ads aimed at women too.
Yeah.
So
so it's not like it doesn't happen for guys. You know what I mean?
But you can see their point. You can see how because I've been with you while you have commented on that and how it's bothered you.
It does.
He gets furious.
I throw things and
cry a little.
I have definitely sobbed myself to sleep over it. So I can kind of see it from that perspective because I do get kind of tired of the dumb white male who doesn't know any better. He's kind of a goof, but the good thing his wife's there to figure it all out for him.
Right. So if you just see some girl who's hot and she just, wearing something low cut and that's it, it's fun for some people and not fun for others, I think is probably what our point is. All
right, Johnny, tell me if you're excited about this. There is a rumor going around, and by rumor I mean I think it's almost totally confirmed. Roger Rabbit. Remember Roger Rabbit?
Yes, I've heard of him.
Word is that a sequel is being written by the original screenwriters. Screenplay is already underway. They're talking about doing motion capture with computer-assisted graphics, so it's going to have not a full CG look. It's going to be more of a traditional animation style with just some modernized elements to it.
Okay.
Were you a big Roger Rabbit fan back in the Dizzle?
I was, because I went through a period where I didn't see any movies. Just my family. I was young at the time, so. I couldn't afford to go myself, and my parents weren't taking me. So my dad and I think got in a fight or something. He's like, hey, you know what? I'm sorry, it's my fault. Let's go to a movie. And I saw Roger Rabbit, and I loved it. I loved it.
All right. So you'd be excited about a sequel?
Well,
I'm very meh on the whole thing. I'm not.
It's not that I'm excited. It's been a long time, and it was just a positive experience for me at the time. Repeated viewings. There's some funny things, and there's some stuff that's just too much, I think. What's his name? Bob Hoskins?
Yeah. He's not confirmed yet.
Confirmed?
He's not confirmed to return as Eddie Vallant.
He is old as dirt now and looks it. Kathleen Turner could probably use the work as Jessica Rabbit. And Lord knows Roger Rabbit, the voice actor for Roger Rabbit, could use the work, because the last thing I'm aware of that he was in was Back to the Future 2.
Oh.
So
the original Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out in 1998. Or 1988.
1988, a long time ago.
Yeah. All right, so moving on. One last thing in the entertainment section, just as a follow-up to last week's episode, we talked about the the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 getting Netflix or Netflix 360.
And you said you didn't think the Wii's hardware could handle it.
Right. So now,
how did you fare on that?
There is a rumor to make sure that they wanted to come out and prove me wrong within a week of the last episode.
Right.
God forbid I'd be right for a week. Right.
Why should we let people forget about it and then not realize you were wrong?
So there's a rumor that the Nintendo Wii is going to get Netflix streaming. Not only Netflix streaming in mother effing HD.
Wow.
Now, you say to me, Chris, the Nintendo Wii, it doesn't even do HD.
Well, it has a TiVo add-on. You plug a TiVo into it.
That's kind of, and by plug a TiVo into it, you mean use the other inputs on your TV, go out and buy a TiVo. Yeah. No, so this is totally just rumor at this point, but there is a website out there, and they are refusing to release the images to protect their source, which always seems a little fishy, but they supposedly have images of a Nintendo Wii with an add-on module that's doing Netflix streaming and has HD support. And they claim it's already in development and that it could come as soon as before the end of 2009, early 2010.
So that's quick. I mean, that's just a matter of months then.
Yeah.
And that's huge because everyone has a Wii. You know, you have all these non-gamers.
They're a massive console.
Yeah.
They're massive.
I mean, it's
the only console I don't have.
But everyone else does.
Right. And you don't have one.
I don't have one.
But everybody else does.
Everybody else. So here, 100% of the people don't have one.
It's getting kind of crazy. I mean, Netflix is very soon going to live up to the net in their name. They're going to be, if they can get it everywhere, then I hope the good content will follow.
Right.
We'd mentioned instantwatcher.com last week to try to find some of the good content on Netflix Watch Now, or Watch Instantly. But that is a big deal. I mean, to be on the PlayStation 3, the 360, and the Wii, and then, dozens of set-top boxes.
Those people who own these gaming consoles are more likely to be using a Netflix, I feel, Netflix type deal. Just slightly.
Yeah, I could see that.
So
I could see that.
So I think it's huge for Netflix. Now I think that is now Netflix's responsibility to kind of step up their game on their watch now.
Yeah.
And really kind of get some content on there that isn't just something you're like, well, I guess I could watch this.
Yeah. And now the thing is I could see why the Wii could be a very lot of advantages to it being a Netflix streaming box. One, you can get a Roku, which is like $100, silent. All it does is like Netflix and Hulu and a few other things. But if you wanted to get, if you were like, well, I want to get a Netflix streaming device, do I get a 360, a PlayStation 3, a Wii? But you're mainly going to watch it for Netflix. You look at that and you go, well, the Wii is quiet. The Wii doesn't put out a lot of heat, low power.
Right.
Plays a few games that I might like. There's some real advantage there. And one thing to say too for Netflix Watch Instantly is sometimes they have some current stuff, like they had Weeds on there, for like a few days after it aired.
Right. I think
that's cool.
For certain, the Watch Now's value,
and
I
Dexter,
think, is television shows. It's got a couple of seasons of Dexter. That's really its value is the television shows, because if you're behind on
there's also
on
a
Doctor
ton
Who
of
for sure.
Doctor Who. There's
Lost Quantum Leap is on there.
Yes, and like one of the seasons of Star Trek the original series.
It's I actually have it in my queue now.
I really dig it for all of the History Channel stuff. I really watch all the History Channel stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff television-wise. There's some good stuff movie-wise, I think. And if you're into classics, there's classic movies or older stuff. Yeah. You can find some stuff you like too.
All right, so that kind of wraps up all the stuff we had in our entertainment section.
Well, hold on. I want to talk about that just a little bit more.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting debate because I don't think...
Bring it.
I don't think that it's really going to drive up Wii sales very much. I mean, you're talking about how it's cheaper, but I think that it's just something that people are going to do who already have a Wii. I don't think that it's going to be like, well, I have to buy a Wii now. I think
what I was suggesting was I'm looking at a device that I'm primarily using for Netflix, assuming their content gets better.
Right.
I'm primarily going to use it for Netflix, but it'd be nice if it did a few other things. Then I think the Wii now becomes, because of its price point, the Roku's $100, Wii's $180, $200.
Yeah, something like. Well,
so you spend a little more for the Wii, and you get a gaming machine too, still silent. I mean, you can get the PlayStation 3, and it's expensive,
right?
Hot, not so loud, but lots of power. It does play Blu-ray, but there's almost more games. I don't know. That's a tough call. Like the 360 is almost totally out because it's so freaking loud.
Yeah,
it's just so dang loud.
I mean, since I have other options, it is definitely up for me.
Yeah. So I think maybe that's where the Wii kind of enters that. If I'm just shopping for a Netflix device, now I don't know how big that market is. It's probably not very big, and Roku kind of has that cornered. But it is, it's an offering that I think is, if Nintendo didn't have it and the PS3 did and the 360 had it, you'd be looking at Wii going,
I think more people are aware of the Wii than the Roku, though. I mean, like...
for sure.
If you find out that it can do that, you're going to be like, Roku, what? And then you're just going to do it for the Wii. Right. I think the Roku is a non-competitor as far as this market goes. I mean,
where the Roku's kind of positioning himself as kind of like your set-top box to get other online content. I don't know if they have it yet. I think they do. They have Hulu, I think, now on the Roku. So you fire up this Roku. I mean, it takes like hardly no power. It does HD, and you get Netflix, you get Hulu, and like you're gonna get like some other online podcasts. And I mean, you start looking at that and some football, sports stuff. Right. You start looking at it and going, all right. So, but you're right. There's like its mind share is tiny compared to the Wii.
Exactly.
It's marginal. Interesting. I look at all of this and I look at what Apple's doing with the Apple TV, and I think to myself, what the frick, Apple?
Yeah, it just seems like a waste.
And this, I wasn't actually going to talk about this in this show, but this kind of segues into that.
Okay.
Is Apple's pitching, rumored, and I hate to talk about Apple rumors because they can be totally false.
Yeah, way off.
But there is a rumor going around that Apple's talking about pitching to the TV networks $30 subscription plan for your Apple TV. And what it'll basically do is you go into iTunes, you sign up for the subscription plan, you pick all your shows, and then send that list to the Apple TV, and then it'll download them all automatically for you. You turn on the Apple TV, all your TV shows are on there, automatically downloaded, commercial free.
$30
a month.
$30 for each network?
Well,
it'll be like $30 for NBC, $30 for ABC, or how does that work?
So far,
$30 period. You can watch whatever you want.
Well, that's the rumor.
That's a month or a year?
That seems totally impractical to me. $30 a month. $30 a month. You get any of the shows that are on iTunes. I call BS because there's shows that are very different priced.
Right.
But if it is true,
there'd have to be exceptions like HBO and.
There'd have to be, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like only certain shows.
It'd have to be like the top, ABC, NBC, CBS, and
maybe
Fox.
like HBO, you still buy per episode or per season, because like right now in HBO, I don't know, I've never done it, but I think like an HBO season is like $60-$70 on iTunes.
Yeah.
And then you get every episode, or maybe it's not that much. It might be $30.
It's still overpriced.
And I looked at just out of curiosity of like, I took my Comcast bill. This was back when I had Comcast. I took my Comcast bill, and I took all the shows that I'd want to watch via iTunes, added up, and iTunes was crazy more expensive. And I thought my Comcast was expensive, and iTunes was like way more. So when you start talking $30, then I start going, doable. Okay, well that's cheaper than my TV service.
Right.
It's decent quality, 720p, decent quality. It does have rights restrictions, but I don't know.
But it doesn't matter.
I can't get it. Yeah, so does the stuff on my TiVo. So
yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, totally rumor. If it actually happens, maybe we'll discuss it. But otherwise, I just thought I'd mention it since I mentioned that.
That's interesting.
TV. All right. Ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about tech stuff. Since I did just mention Apple, let's keep going that way. I'm going a little out of order.
Okay.
I'll try to reorganize the show notes for the peeps that are looking for links. All right. So I have, for educational purposes and the purpose of review and news commentary for the internet podcasting, have built Hackintoshes.
What?
Discussed them.
Okay.
Hackintosh desktops. Hackintosh netbooks.
Right.
My favorite is the Hackintosh netbook. Runs crazy good. Little MSI Wind, an Atom processor, like a 1 or 2 gigs of memory.
Like $250 or so?
After the memory upgrade, I think I was around $320.
Okay.
Great little machine, 160 gig hard drive. Just a little male web, watching TV, poop around on the internet I got it for my wife.
Right.
And I loaded OS 10 on there, and fantastic. So I haven't put Snow Leopard on there yet because it's running so good. I figure why upgrade, why mess with it. So it's running the previous version. Now, there is a update to Snow Leopard. Version 10.62 is currently in development by the Apple Inc. And
it makes it run even better.
No.
What?
Actually, it makes it not even run at all on systems with Atom processors. Now, what's funny about that is during the OS 10.5 days, Apple put out an update. Whatever they had changed made it run like way better on Atom processors. Like, you added an extra hour to battery life.
better performance,
really?
like a lot better. And people are like, holy crap, is this Apple's like, unconfirmed, unpublic little nod to the community saying, go ahead, we're not supporting it, but we're going to make it a little better for you. And everybody's like, go Apple. Right,
it's
now,
an accident.
Now it's like either the kernel does some sort of processor check or something and says, oh, Atom CPU? Nope, can't do it. Now, of course, the Hackintosh community is going to work around this almost immediately.
And it's just mean.
Yeah, what do you think? So it's breaking compatibility on a product they don't sell.
Right.
That they don't support.
And there's no reason to do it. I mean, if it's checking, and that's the only way to do it, right? It's check.
Or possibly if it calls for some sort of processor function that the Atom just doesn't support. Possible that's the case. Unlikely, since the version right before it didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, not just like, we're talking OS 10.6.2 from between OS 10.6.1.
Right. It's
one minor revision, and now all of a sudden it doesn't work.
It's something just to keep people buying. I mean, because why would people buy a $1,200 laptop when they can buy one for $350?
Well, they do different things for sure.
Obviously, they do different things. But, I mean, you can still get a decent machine.
Do you think dick move, or do you think they don't support it, they don't sell a product, and it may technically, depending on how enforceable EULAs are, when you install the software, you may be actually violating the Apple EULA?
I still think dick move.
I think dick move too. What some people think online is they're about to come out with a tablet. This has been going on for a long time, but it's really ramping up now.
I've heard a lot about that tablet.
And it's possible that Apple's worried that ability to run it on a netbook is going to eat into their tablet sales. Because people are going to look at, anything Apple comes out with is going to be $600-$700.
Yeah.
And then you look at the $250 netbook and you think, well, I'm just going to go this route.
Yeah.
So I think that's why
Why wouldn't you?
I think that's a reasonable reason to think maybe why they're blocking it. Still say a dick move. It's funny because there's always this back and forth thing. Like,
it makes sense for them. I just think it's still dick move.
I just wish Apple products do what they do because they're locked down, limited set of hardware, limited set of software, very controlled. Now sometimes there's this gray area where you needed to do a little more or be a little more flexible, and you have to modify it. And if you're technically capable of doing that on hardware that you own with software you've purchased, you should be allowed to do it. Right. They shouldn't block it. Now, if they need to update something where it breaks compatibility, that's one thing. But to go and actively try to break it, dick move. And I really hate that because I really like to totally be cool with Apple all the time. But they just do these asshole things.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's right after this update that they had that just like, so they must have known, they must have realized like, whoops,
Or they were experimenting.
Yeah.
They're like testing internally, so they added some features to the OS X kernel, and then, I don't know. Yeah.
And you're right, it's not like it's going to permanently stop it. It's just going to be a barrier. It's just going to make it so people have to buy newer cheap machines. It's going to help. It's going to help.
Or they're going to respin. They're going to respin new CD versions of the OS X installer that has a patched kernel. Yeah. I mean, you look at like the freaking iPhone. Apple makes an update. They block the hackers, and then within 2-3 days, sometimes a couple of weeks, there's a new version of the hacking tool for the iPhone and iPod. So it's this total never-win situation. But all right, so moving on to that. From that, I should also say that Apple came out, and this really blew my mind. Just before we wrap the story up, Apple came out and said, just the very act of booting OS X on a non-Apple computer is a form of copyright violation. So check this out. Copying a computer program into RAM as a result of installing and running the program is precisely the copying that Section 117, which I believe is which is a paragraph or area in the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, constitute as copyright infringement of the owner of the program. So what they're saying is by installing and running the program or operating system and just loading some of the bits of that program into memory, you are copying what is already a copyright violation. So
you've already broken the law.
You've broken the law, and then now you're making a copy of your law breaking by moving it into RAM. Which, I mean, you open the calculator.
Double suck. This is double suck.
That is such a weak argument because, first of all, it's not the same code. It's been, anyways. I just thought I'd mention that, so I'll link to that if you're interested in that. I think they're going crazy with this whole Hackintosh thing, and if they would just, all they have to do, and I hate this crap about Apple, is all they have to do is put a $180 box copy in the store. Installed on any machine you want, kids. We're not going to support it. But I think they could never do that.
So what if you get the family pack that has 5 licenses?
Right.
And then you install that on there.
Yeah.
And then you're good, right?
You're a violating fool.
No, because it's got one license.
Yeah.
2 licenses.
Oh, I see. So you install the 5-copy license on one machine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe. Except for what they're saying is because it's a hacked illegal copy in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so dumb. Let's move on. That
Okay.
pissed me off. All right. So now this is an interesting one. Before we get into the politics section, let's just kind of flip. This is kind of like a precursor to the politics section. There's been a couple of different surveys out recently. This one's from the UK. And get this. Tell me if you think this is true or total BS. They say music pirates spend more on music than non-pirates. The results of a survey announced a couple of days ago show that the biggest buyers of music are in fact those who pirate it the most. The conclusions come from a poll of 1,000 people from the ages of 16 to 50, with 10% of those admitting that they download music illegally. Now, this is only 1,000 people. The other studies have also included larger numbers and smaller numbers. So the basic facts are, they asked 1,000 people between 16 and 50, 10% admitted to pirating music. Of that 10%, they spent substantially more on
music.
actual music. So the conclusion being drawn is the people that are legally downloading are the people that are crazy fanatics about music. And not only are the downloading illegally is just one more way they're consuming music. They're buying on iTunes, Amazon, and the CD stores.
Now, here's why this kind of makes sense to me. Okay, first of all, I think in general, people who download or who pirate music tend to be a little bit more aware of some of the different stuff that's out there.
Sure, you got to know what to look for.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, and I have quite a few friends who download music illegally, and quite a few of them, like, some of the more indie stuff. And they make sure that they pay for the indie stuff.
Right.
And the stuff that they don't really...
Big label stuff.
Yeah, big label stuff, pirate it.
Now...
And I think just being more aware of music, I mean, you're gonna be knowing what you want more, and you're gonna be looking for different things, and you're gonna find it.
Speaking from personal experience, I used to pirate music, and I don't now.
I don't either anymore.
It started with iTunes. Apple really did make it easy to buy music legally. And cheap. And that was like all I needed. And then so I got the taste of it, and then I said, well, okay, but I don't want DRM, and I don't want to have to use iTunes. So then I started buying from Amazon, right? Or different outlets. And that being said, I never bought a CD in my life until I had Napster back in the Dizzle.
Really?
And I started downloading music, figuring out, I like this song, and then I would go buy the CD, and I'd rip the CD. But I wouldn't put it back up online. I would just rip it to my drive so I could have it in Winamp or whatever music player I was using. I literally went from spending $0 on music to spending substantially more money on music. I continued to do that. When Napster died off, I switched to LimeWire, whatever the crap I used back then.
Yeah,
and then when iTunes came out, I pretty much no longer ever buy physical CDs. Do you buy CDs?
No.
But I do still buy the music. And I don't pirate it anymore. I'm trying to think if I've done any downloading. I just, with the 30-second previews and one click to buy, in some on Amazon they're like 89 cents. I figure they've earned it, so I've done it that way. But I wonder if I'd be buying music today, or if I don't know. It's an interesting question, and I think you make a great point with you have to know what to look for, and I think you also have to be a big enthusiast to go out and do that, because it's not doing it illegally is still not idiot proof. If you do it on BitTorrent, you need to, it sounds like a dumb thing for probably people watching or listening to this show, but you need to you need to know how to load a torrent client. You need to know what sites to go to, what's crap, what's not, and that's a huge barrier to entry.
It is for a lot of people.
But so you have to be a really motivated mother effer if you're not comfortable with that stuff to get it done. And so to be that motivated, you got to be into your music. And I
think another thing that I didn't really make clear, I think, is a lot of people who are more aware of music, they're like, well, they want everything, but they can't afford everything. So they're going to pay for some and just take the rest that they can't.
Right. That was a great point. Yeah, it's a great one. I was going to mention that because back in the day I figured, well, I'm going to download this, and if I don't like it, I'm not going to buy it. But I never would have bought it anyways.
Right.
Like if I download
right, you're not... Yeah,
I'm not giving them money. I was never going to give them money in the first place. And that's true for
because it's easy, you can get it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have it at all.
That's true for some software, too. It's like, I will never, ever spend $1,000 on this software. I will never do that. I have spent $1,000 on software, but there's just some software I won't. If I download it, they're not losing any money. Now, my general take is on software too. Is if you're going to use it, you should pay for it. But I'm just saying, yeah, it's a great point. That's I thought I meant to say that and I had forgotten.
Okay.
All right,
I beat you to it.
now. Moving on, let's stir the pot a little bit.
Okay.
Let's get into the politics section here.
Fun.
And next week, we're kicking around the idea for the politics section to do maybe a little global warming discussion.
Talk about global warming. There's debate.
There's some controversy around it, and we've got some ideas, some thoughts.
Science.
I thought maybe we'd have a little discussion here, see what you guys thought. We definitely got some great feedback from last episode on the vaccines. I would say the majority of people, by a pretty good number, are pro-vaccine.
Yes, but there were a few people who were vocal, who were very anti-vaccine.
Yes.
And told us to do research, and research was done. I researched it before I talked about it.
Yeah, well, both sides said do the research. That's what I noticed. Both sides, both comments from either side or commenting, whatever. All right, so now let's talk about something that's near and dear to my heart.
Okay.
Even it's funny because it's such an important issue, and I feel like I barely grasp it. But I think it's one of those things that's simpler than I'm giving it credit for. And that is Senator John McCain has recently introduced an anti-net neutrality bill with some key quotes that I've picked out here saying, this is from McCain, regulation kills innovation. Let's not kill the internet.
Oh.
Now.
So he's got good intentions, right?
What was it, like 2 years ago, maybe a little longer, this issue was one of the things that took down Senator Ted Stevens.
Yeah.
There's controversy.
Well, he was a laughingstock on the internet.
He became a laughingstock, and so it's interesting to see the sack on McCain for stepping into this arena. Basically, the two sides are government should ensure some basic regulation that says operators of networks cannot go out of their way to degrade access to other networks.
Right.
That is the pro net neutrality, saying we're not gonna really manage you from the standpoint of how you run your network, but what we are gonna say is don't go out of your way to say if you're Comcast and people at home want to watch YouTube, unless they pay for a YouTube package, they get degraded YouTube quality. You're not allowed to do that.
Right.
And their standpoint is there is a very big market growing. There's an entire economy being built on the internet, and if you start degrading access to those services, you're going to kill off potential business.
Right.
The flip side, the anti-net neutrality folks, where McCain's coming from, is if the government starts regulating the internet at all, they're going to screw it up, they're going to muck it up, they're going to slow things down, and the people that own the networks that essentially have monopolies in different areas, although they don't mention that, right, should be allowed to operate their networks how they feel fit. After all, it is their network. Now, I've spent some time thinking about this issue. I don't know if you've kicked it around much.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts initially on where do you stand on net neutrality? Pro, or do you say the government should do some level of regulation, or you say the government should stay completely out of it?
I think some level of regulation. I personally am very pro net neutrality. I mean, I don't really. I'm willing to bet that most people watching this are also pro net neutrality, since they're probably watching it on YouTube or Jupiter Broadcasting. Right,
and that's why I look at it from the standpoint of, we're building something here, and the idea that Comcast or Verizon or, whatever, Roadrunner, they could go in and dial us down unless somebody paid for the multimedia package.
Right.
All that's going to do is not drive people to my site, because they're not going to visit Jupiter Broadcasting because, it's $10 a month extra. I don't know. I'll just skip it.
Doesn't make sense.
And then so essentially it's a massive roadblock right there. And instead of being able to build a successful company that has some income and is able to employ people, I'm going to hit that wall immediately and essentially be screwed. Now the flip side, where I can see some logic to the anti-net neutrality guys, is the internet is not just the United States. There is a whole nother world out there. What? It is the World Wide Web, and a lot of them access services. Now, a lot of the bigger companies have mirrors in other countries, but a lot of them don't. They come through. You have to come to the U.S. in order to access some of the more popular things out there, and to have U.S. laws and regulations impact the World Wide Web does seem, even if it's regulations that theoretically would be a good thing, does seem a little inappropriate. It's like how sometimes, the U.S. I just feel like sometimes, and it was kind of started here and all that,
right?
But I feel like sometimes we act like we own and operate the entire World Wide Web, and we get a little big brother with it and things like that. And
that's fair.
I feel bad for people in Canada and the UK, all over the world. It's like, sorry we're being dicks with your internet. But the flip side is, I think this regulation, from what I understand of it, would really, for the most part, not really impact them in a negative way.
So at the same point, you can kind of see why people are against net neutrality because it's the whole world. There's a ton of money in not regulating it.
Right.
You talk about
a ton
everyone.
Of money.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's what pisses me off because it's those companies that are behind Senator John McCain who basically are seeing dollar signs.
Right.
They look at it in a way that, I'm going to be able to charge more. I'm going to be able to. They're hoping.
Huge.
They're hoping they can get a
billions
dollar
and billions
off
and
Google.
billions of dollars.
There's been
Carl Sagan dollars.
There's been discussions where Carl Sagan dollars. There's been discussions where, some of the backbones think that they should get money per visitor from Google. Low dollar, pennies of pennies.
Right. Still though.
But they're like, you're successful because you're piggybacking on our network, and we should be able to charge you for that because
you're a heavy user.
It's like if private corporations own the roads, and I drove those roads to get to Best Buy. The thing is that there's a lot of data out there that suggests that a lot of those backbone companies are actually making an ton of money thanks to things like YouTube and things like that, which you would think would be a huge money loser.
Yeah,
but there's actual data out there that says they're making money, and you put that on top of the fact that there's a crap ton of taxpayer subsidized dark fiber throughout the entire United States that the telcos just don't get around to lighting up because it's expensive, even though they've received billions in tax cuts to lay it in the first place. So there is a huge amount of untapped bandwidth out there. So we're not running out of bandwidth.
Right.
And we've never been running out of bandwidth.
It's just these people trying to make money. That's all it is. And it's obvious that that's what it is. That's what they do as companies.
But it pisses me off
that
it's always... It was Senator Ted Stevens, Republican. John McCain, Republican. What the hell, Republicans? Could you please not be so obvious?
Well, Republicans in general are against regulations. So, and that's kind of kicked us in the butt where we are right now.
Right.
One might argue. But and I don't think that's true for everything. I think deregulating some things is okay.
Yeah.
But I think you really need to...
And I think the regulations they're talking about now, you might be able to make the argument, well, they're talking about really, basic regulation now, but once their foot's in the door, they're going for it.
Yeah,
that is sometimes very true with the
that can happen. I don't. Well, who knows? But
I'm impressed this debate's even going on, to be honest with you. It seems like so, and this part of the problem is just so far.
I'm glad that they're talking about regulating it all.
Well, I'm impressed that which is obviously a subject that's far and above probably anyone in the Senate's expertise, including John McCain, who demonstrated on the campaign trail, I feel that he had a very fundamental lack of understanding of technology. So it's interesting to see him take this up. So he's probably had some sort of coaching and things like that, which same with
We've got
Stevens.
people in his ear, obviously,
Well, and they have staff that are experts in different topics and things like that. But either way, I think I've decided, after looking at the facts, I'm really for some basic regulation that says there has to be a neutral stance to other networks because there, even if it's not Jupiter Broadcasting, if it's something like Leo Laporte's Twit.tv network or Revision 3, if
things are doing well, but people probably wouldn't pay extra money,
right, and
do it.
or if maybe Twit and Revision 3 are at the point now where people might pay money, but a few years ago, if this had been if it had been a fact where the telcos could dial down people's service to them, they probably never would have.
But and even now, some people pay money, but I bet the majority of users will still drop off. It's just it doesn't really.
We have
work.
Some hardcore fans in Australia who skip a lot of our content and get lower quality audio versions because they literally get a certain amount of data and then they pay like by the megabyte afterwards or something like that. And the amount
Sorry,
of data
Australia.
they get is crazy low. Like they're preset. Some of these guys, now some of it's not the case, obviously, but some of these guys, one episode is their entire quota for the month. For the month, one freaking episode. And so you feel for these guys because this is an area where this kind of.
Well, don't you feel we should create an Australian-centric episode then? That's just once a month?
I don't know. Maybe they can leave a comment. Let us know. We'll see.
I've got relatives there, yeah.
I feel like we should have a mirror. No, because they still, even for local stuff, so I just don't want to see that happen here, I guess. All right. Now, like I said, we're going to give equal bashing opportunity.
Okay.
And there's kind of some buzz. So in the United States, it's
Been a year.
They call it off-year elections. Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Off-year elections. You got your governor races, your mayor races, and things like that.
Got a few different ones going on, but not too many.
There's been some buzz going around that there's some trending going on in these races so far in the polls that the elections are leaning towards the right, and some people are suspecting that it might be due to some dissatisfaction with Obama's essentially what is almost now the first year in office.
Right. Well,
And,
it pretty much is. I mean, it's
right. Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's why they're talking about it.
Wow.
That's why there's elections now.
Jeez, it's November.
Yeah.
Holy crap. So, what do you think, John? What do you think? Do you think, has Obama's first 12 months in office been kind of a letdown, or has he made some decent progress?
Well, my personal opinion is that there's been some progress in some areas and some things are kind of stalling. That being said, what he walked into was crazy.
True.
When he was elected, I didn't expect him to turn the economy around in a year. Maybe like little bits of progress.
And would you say it's probably safe to say it's turned around, or it's at least
Turning around?
It's very, very far in that turn. Like it's not fully around, but maybe it's like.
I don't think I'd say that yet. Actually,
Really?
I think that
I
there's
agree,
work
but
being done.
I see progress, but at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think we're out of anything yet. I mean, I
Right.
think like I was listening to NPR, and they were just talking about how a lot of people predict that, a lot of people were let go, and right now there's growth in some of the manufacturing jobs, but that's because so few people were buying that any increase in demand forces people to hire some just to create product. So, and a lot of companies still aren't hiring enough people. So, I mean, you're still going to have low jobs. A lot of people, a lot of the businesses that I guess they talked to in the survey were saying that, they probably wouldn't hire back to what they had for at least another couple of years.
Right. And
that's pretty big. I mean, that's a lot of unemployed people. You have 10% unemployment in quite a few states, including here.
Right.
And that's people who are going to really remain out of work unless, things start turning
It
around.
does seem on the men's, though,
We did have a growth in October.
And house prices have, in a lot of places in this
are going up, for I think the third month in a row, I believe.
Not so much here, but
Not too much.
All right, but let me give you so that's good stuff.
There's some positive signs that things are turning around.
But let me give you a few negative stats that now obviously this article has an opinion.
Okay.
I believe it is an opinion piece, but the numbers are numbers.
Okay.
And you take numbers however you take numbers, people.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you how to take numbers.
Just math.
I'm not your number master. All right. So, Obama's approval rating is down 12 points, but nothing too
So I think he's
unusual.
I know in Ohio, I believe he was pulling around 52% approval rating.
We just had one of the bloodiest losses in Afghanistan we've had ever. But all right. So, the number of U.S. troops currently in Afghanistan is Obama's considering a request from his top general for another 40,000 additional troops in Afghanistan. Now, seems like if you're going to put them somewhere, Afghanistan is the place to put them.
Right.
But I do seem to recall a lot of talk on the campaign trail about bringing the troops home. And now you've got this situation where we're talking about an additional 40,000. I mean, that's not like a small number. That's a big freaking number.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of families.
All right. Another one. The number of U.S. troops killed in Afghanistan since Obama's election. That is not a right number. Oh, 280. 280 since his election. So that's kind of a sad number. Yeah. All right. The number of golf games that President Obama has played since been in office is 24. which is now, I believe that number surpasses all of the golf games President Bush played in his entire term.
Okay.
2 terms, both terms.
But
now,
count up his vacation versus Bush's vacation.
Right, but here's my point.
Okay.
And this is kind of where I'm taking this, is Bush's vacation was a really big deal. Like in the news, like when you're listening to the top news stories.
Right.
That was one of the things covered. This
isn't as big.
It's kind of fallen by the wayside.
Well, the fact of the matter is vacation is vacation. A golf game is 3 hours, you know?
Right.
So, well, you might argue that he shouldn't be playing as much golf when there's so many things to fix, which I think is a valid argument. At the same time, you got to like give him a little bit of free time so he can handle stuff. No, not to make excuses for Obama. You know, I think that there probably is more that he could be doing, I'm sure.
I feel like he's got some time still, but in the next couple of years, if he doesn't make some big changes, it could be a tight re-election.
I think so too. Well, I mean,
I really think it could be
the problem is when he was elected, I mean, some people were voting Democrat and they believed him. Some people were just voting against Republicans, and they were not voting for Obama. They were not voting for Democratic ideas.
Right.
They were just voicing a disapproval for George Bush.
It's interesting to watch. Do you remember the second time George Bush won? He kept using this phrase, "I've got a lot of political capital." Remember that phrase? I've got a lot.
Right.
I'm going to spend my political capital. There was a lot of momentum behind him and his party. Obama won 12 months ago, and there was a lot of momentum. You know, a landslide really across the whole United States for different elections, just really big. In a lot of ways, that seems to have faded, and I look at it and I just go, I can't find in too many ways. There's a few instances, but I can't find in too many ways where it's any of that different. I mean, it's almost like Bush is in office, but just kind of had a change of heart on a few issues.
I would disagree in some instances. I think one of the, you know, even though it's just more because of who he is, but I think world perception of
world
US,
perception, I would agree. But at the end of the day, I care about world perception a lot less than I care about domestic stuff.
It makes a big difference. I think you're going to get more support behind it.
Here's the thing. The U.S., and I'm not saying this to be a dick. I don't even like it, but it's the facts. The U.S. is a huge power. And if we got the biggest dick running the company, or we got everybody's buddy running the company, at the end of the day, if you want to make a buck, you need to do business in the U.S. The U.S. needs to buy your product. We've got the Atlantic and the Pacific. We do trading and shipping on both. There's entire economies, literally entire economies, that are based off of us. So at the end of the day, it's good they like us. They don't have to, though. And that's not a lot is going to change. The French are going to swear about Americans and pick on travelers or whatever. But at the end of the day, not a lot's going to change as far as even world politics, because we own the oceans. We own a lot of people's economies. We are big. And it's cool when we get along with people and we're awesome and we're cooperative and we respect other nations.
Right.
But
well, the thing is, we're dependent on these other nations too. I mean, we can't forget that. We need them. We need to sell them our goods. I don't think you can overlook that. And I think, like, when we want to get policies pushed or, you know, go to the UN, I think having the support of other countries is a big deal.
Absolutely. Especially when we're trying to do things like, you know, work with Korea and Iran and things like that. But
now, that being said, you know,
the scales,
you could say, what has he done to deserve this other than not be George Bush? And that might be something.
Yeah, in fact, some of the trips he's made to try to make, you know, to basically make an overture to some of the Middle Eastern countries have kind of actually flopped a little bit.
Right.
But at least he's making the effort. And you have to, in a lot of ways, is just as important because there's so many people watching. But I don't know. I wanted more change.
Right.
Might be the word. Maybe I'm picking out is more change.
Right. Got it. Well, I think, personally, I'm still a supporter. I think that it's asking a lot of him to fix everything at once in a year. And these are huge issues. I think just, you know, one or two of these issues that he has would be asking quite a bit of a president, and he just stepped into just kind of this huge mess.
Right. What do you think of the concept of, on the campaign trail, they're not privy to confidential information, and then they get into the office, they get the debrief of all debriefs, right? And they're like, oh,
Brad.
That's going on in Afghanistan?
I'm sure that happens to a degree.
Oh, F, all that crap I said. Oh.
Just yesterday they were talking about, North Korea has enough for another plutonium for another nuclear weapon, stuff like that. And it's all things that he has to deal with, all things he has to take into consideration. And I'm sure he knows more than everyone else. And I believe even Bush said something along those lines during the election.
Here's what sucks, is if you look at it, and I'm going to get my numbers wrong, but it's from a book called The Next 100 Years. And this guy that wrote this book, he was talking about, and I can't remember, I think it was 50, but maybe it was as short as 30. Every 50 to 30 years, I believe it was 50 though, there is like a big, huge, massive shift in our economy. And when I say that, I mean like what drives the economy, how people perceive the economy, what the overall majority political view is on things. And if you're not at the beginning or end of that 50-year window, you basically never get a lot done. Despite how hard they try, you never get a lot done. And Jimmy Carter was at the end of the last window, and Reagan was at the beginning of the new window. And we're still in that Reagan window. And basically what this guy's argument was, I believe it was 50 years. So what this guy's saying is presidents in between this 50-year window...
Nothing gets done?
Not a lot changes. Because just the overall political force and mass of the United States...
50 years seems like a long time for a country that's not that...
Maybe it was...
old, really. I mean...
20... See, if it's... What... Yeah.
I mean, if we started in 1776, that's not that many changes. I mean, you can probably find...
Well, what the guy boils it down to is like... And I'm missing a couple of them. Maybe it started with a few other things. But, basically, he backs it up with different points in history where you can see big shifts happen.
Right.
And it's kind of depressing in a way because, like, small things change and things get set up for the big change eventually.
Right. But you don't actually see it happen.
On the grand scale, you don't. Yeah.
Well, that's, how could I argue with that? I haven't read the book, so I don't know. I mean, maybe that's true. But I think the economy is big enough and it's kind of in rough enough shape that it's going to take longer than a year to fix. I mean, it's just, there's too much stuff going on. There's too many people affected. You still have I can't remember the company, which is bad, but we just had the biggest U.S. bankruptcy in history right now that had taken bailout money and still.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the company's name either.
CGI?
Yeah. CTI?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Starts with C. I'm embarrassed that I don't know. But there's still all this stuff going on.
Did I tell you about how
I'm still an Obama supporter, but I'm not. It's not unconditional. I'm waiting to see how things go. I'm giving him more time, but
I agree.
A year from now, if we still aren't seeing much, we should at least be able to see, more signs of things changing a year from now.
Yes, absolutely. One quick wrap before we end. Speaking of companies that have taken bailout money and then done something bad, I have an American Express business card that I use for Costco.
Right.
And I think I got with a $10,000 limit or something like that. And American Express took bailout money. The month they took bailout money, they restructured everything. Tons of customers. You just Google this and you find it. Tons of customers' credit limits to damn near 90% of what their balance was. And so we would go to Costco, we'd buy stuff, buy gas, and I drive a lot for my job, so my gas bill is very large. And then we pay it off at the end of the month. And we get cash back, it's cool, right? So went from having like $900 balance with a $10,000 credit limit. Then one day we get a letter saying, by the way, we've adjusted your credit limit. You now have $1,000 credit limit. So we went from $900 on the card to 90% or whatever that math is, capacity, which then showed up on my credit report as maxing out that credit card. And what they don't take on the credit report is they just take the ratio of available credit to debt. And they say, and if it's 100,000 and I have 99,000 on there, or if I have 1,000, or if I have 900 on 1,000, they look at that ratio and go, oh, boy, he's maxed out. And my credit rating dropped.
Right. Well,
I mean, unbelievable. After they got taxpayer bailout.
The good news is you have your house, you have your cars, you're set.
Right. And it did happen after that, which is good. But it's just like, screw you guys. Thanks for...
Yeah, no, that's bad business.
All right. So, I think we covered the vaccination thing. Was there anything else we wanted to cover from last week's episode before we wrap this mother effer up?
No, just give us your suggestions on stuff you want to talk about.
I'd love to hear what people think, especially the net neutrality and Obama's first 12 months.
Yeah.
And if you've got any resources, maybe not so much on the opinions just yet, but you can. But if you've got any resources that you think we should educate ourselves with before we talk about global warming next episode, we'd love to get those
resources.
Links. Love to get those links. So that way we can try to cover perspectives from the audience out there.
Yeah, we'll do our research.
So we want to hear from that. And I think, and update on the job. Have you been out? You've been on there for a week now?
No.
Almost a week?
Not even a week, no.
How's the new gig going?
It's going well. It's going well. Yeah.
Excellent.
Still doing fine.
Excellent. He's still employed.
Gainfully employed.
Not for a week, but
almost,
at least a couple of days, right?
Trying to go for the week.
There you have it. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for watching this episode of Joint Failures. We're back next Thursday.
All done.